Okay, hi guys, welcome to Biology Online with Henny van Vieren. Hi Year 12s, welcome back to another lesson. I hope you guys are having a good day and that you're, like me, looking forward to the weekend. Anyways, today we're going to do question 2 of the 2019 paper, where we looked closer at the New Zealand Falcon, or the Kariaria. So let's jump into that. Okay, so question 2, natural selection. Kariaria, the Falco Novo Zealandia. Remember, Falco means falcon, Nova means new, Zealandia refers to New Zealand. So the New Zealand falcon. They live throughout Aotearoa. They are predators that use flight to hunt their prey, and research show that males tend to remain in a particular area. They're highly territorial, while females will migrate to new areas. That is important, so that means that the females are spreading the genes around. That's really good. Birds found in the North Island and South Island have two distinct phenotypes. Remember, a phenotype is a physical feature, how they look, that gene which is expressed. So the population size is only at about 7,000 left. Genetic analysis has found that gene flow occurs between the North and the South Island populations, and the population unfortunately has a low genetic diversity. So it's important that even though they look different, they are still the same species because the gene flow happens across the two islands. Okay. Now if you look at the North Island, it's a much smaller bird. They live in denser native bush and pine forests, and it's way warmer on the North Island on average. Now can you see that the coloration, they are slightly darker. That will give them a better camouflage advantage. But in this question they are guiding us towards size. Okay, the South Island, you can see it's a much larger bird, open habitat, high country farms with very little trees around, and a much lower temperature in comparison on average per year to the North Island. Okay, so why would there be an advantage for a larger bird here and a smaller bird here? So we'll get into that. So again, when you then look at discuss the selection pressures that drive the Kariaria's two distinct phenotypes and the factors that cause changes to the allele frequency in the gene pool. Guys, this is our main question. Discuss the selection pressures that drive the Kariaria's two distinct phenotypes and the factors that cause changes in the allele frequency in the gene pool. Okay, so first, in your answer, you should include a description of allele frequency and gene pool. And luckily, you've studied all your definitions, so this is an easy achieved. Allele frequency is the percentage or the number of each allele in a total gene pool. That's it. Okay, and then you describe a gene pool. A gene pool is the sum total of all the alleles available in a population. Okay, gene pool is how much your specific allele frequency is how much your specific allele occurs in this total gene pool, and the gene pool is the sum total of all of them. And for that you get 2 A's. Woohoo! So you only need one more to pass this question. Describe migration, because we know that whenever they then go on to our next bullet point up here in the actual question, when they say an explanation of how migration and genetic drift affects the gene pool. Okay, now the moment they ask you something, you always start with the definition. Always the definition first. So migration is the movement of individuals or then their alleles from one population to another population. Gene pool. Okay, bang, you have another A. Genetic drift is the chance or random change in the allele frequency of a population. So it is not natural selection, it is a chance or the random change, and for that you get another A. Wow, you're already up to A4. Now we describe what a phenotype is, because when you look at the next bullet point, it says consider the two distinct phenotypes and discuss how natural selection has influenced the phenotypes in the North and South Island. Use the information provided to support your answer. So we have to do phenotype and natural selection. So phenotype is the physical feature or trait expressed by the genotype of the two alleles in this case. It's the physical feature or expressed by the genotype. Remember, whether it's recessive or dominant between your two alleles. The one allele was from the maternal organism and the other one was from the paternal organism. So your two alleles, the one comes from the sperm and the other comes from the egg. And where they get together, we call that the genotype, to compare them to see which one is recessive and which one is dominant. And then that basically codes for your physical trait or protein that is going to be produced. Now, describe natural selection. So, for another achieved mark, natural selection is basically some phenotypes or traits or individuals are better suited to the environmental conditions. These individuals survive and reproduce, passing on more favorable alleles to the next generation. That is an achieved level answer for that question. So, remember, natural selection, it's not survival of the fittest. It is survival of the best fit. In other words, the best fit for the environmental conditions. So, some phenotypes are better suited to the environmental conditions. So, they fit better. These individuals that have those phenotypes, they will reproduce more and survive longer, and consequently more of the favorable phenotype will be passed on to the next generation. Okay, now we get to the describe part of it. So we went from, oh no, we've just did phenotypes, natural selection, and going back to the original question at the top, selection pressure, and then a quick description of how they affect our birds. So you would have said, consider the two distinct phenotypes and discuss how the natural selection has influenced the phenotypes. Use the information provided. So again, another one they gave us up there is selection pressure. Define selection pressure. Selection pressure are abiotic, which means non-living, remember, or biotic factors that will affect the survival of an organism in its environment. So what affects, think about this, what abiotic and biotic is for the North Island. So some biotic are the trees and all the plant growth. Abiotic is the temperature. Over here, the lack of trees, the openness, and then also an abiotic again is the temperature. So that is what's driving selection for the two different shapes. Now describe any two selection pressures from either the North or the South Island. In this case, we just said selection pressure acting on the North Island area are warm temperature and dense vegetation. Bang, you got another A there. And the South Island, cold temperature and open plains environment. Okay, so there was 8 opportunities for achieved, and you needed at least 3 of them to pass, and 4 of them obviously is an A4. Now we move on to the explanation. Now remember, explanation is merit level question answering. So in all of this, so an explanation of how migration and genetic drift. So remember, we already defined or described migration, and this is what we wrote in italics over here. The movement of individuals or alleles from one population to another population or gene pool. But to get merit, we need to elaborate on that. So immigration, can you see it's a big I? I for in immigration is the movement of individuals into a gene pool, whereas immigration, A for exit, immigration is the movement of individuals out of a gene pool. Then the allele frequency in a population is affected by the migration. So can you see, this is where the so what techniques come in. So the movement of individuals or alleles from one population to another population. And so what? Well, they bring in new alleles, and as they bring in new alleles, it starts changing the alleles of the population that he joined. So the allele frequency in a population is affected by migration, by either adding when they're immigrating or subtracting when they're emigrating of individuals. Immigration coming into it increases allele frequency, while emigration decreases allele frequency, which leads to an increase or a decrease in the genetic diversity. Alright, so I think everybody understands that. Now, genetic drift, we said already. For A, the A answer is the random change in, genetic drift is a chance or the random change in the allele frequency of a population. That's your A-level answer. But when we now go to merit, we need to say, so what? So what? Why? What will happen if there's a random change? So it says that the allele frequency decreases as alleles are being lost, or certain allele frequency increasing and fixing the allele within the gene pool, which leads to a decrease in genetic diversity due to events such as random non-mating. In other words, a bird that will have a mating mutation never mates, or natural disasters such as a huge forest fire, or then human devastation, okay, where humans just go in and kill these things. Okay, so genetic drift is the random changes, and we know that it's usually because of death, non-mating, and just randomly that the allele just spreads through it and it decreases our genetic variation. Okay, so both of those, that's what you needed to have done for merit. And we're still in the merit section, so we're still explaining. Now explain natural selection. Okay. Now if you look at this third bullet point here, they asked us to discuss the natural selection, but if you only explained it, it would be in this way. So natural selection, some phenotypes or traits or individuals are better suited to the environmental conditions. That is our A-level answer for achieved. These individuals survive and reproduce, passing on their more favorable alleles to the next generation, or the better suited alleles increase in frequency or less suited alleles decrease in frequency. Those individuals with phenotypes better suited to the environment have an increased chance of survival and reproductive success. They produce more offspring. Or the individuals with a less suited phenotype, in other words, those guys who are less fit for the environment, they will have a decreased chance of survival and they will have fewer offspring, or they will have lower reproductive success, and consequently their allele that is not favorable will be selected against due to the individual's chances of survival and reproduction being reduced. Or an allele that helps us survive better will be selected for because the individual survives longer and has more babies. Okay, so we need to ask the so what questions. So that gives you another merit. So 3 opportunities for merit so far. Now also, then we're still in the explain section, so we explain the 2 distinct phenotypes. So the Kariaria have a larger size in the South Island. The phenotype is matched to the survival advantage. Okay, so it's going to be a large body size allele is beneficial in the South Island because the temperature is lower and it enables the Kariaria to retain heat and increase their survival and reproductive success. They also live in an open habitat, therefore they can have a big wingspan, which increases their ability to get food. They become better hunters. However, if you live in the North Island, it's warmer, so you don't want to overheat, so a small body is actually quite good because your surface area to body ratio, you can get rid of a lot of heat very quickly if you're flying around and so forth. But your smaller body size is also beneficial because you live in a native forest, so there's lots of trees and you have to kind of like a fighter pilot fly between all these things. So being smaller is an advantage, okay, and makes them more agile, and that makes them survive better, and if they survive better they have more reproductive success. Alrighty, now when you then discuss, now we're giving a comprehensive discussion, and you will see that we've done all the stuff that we have spoken of so far, but we also then go a little bit deeper into migration and genetic drift. So migration is the movement of individuals from one to another. We've said that before. The allele frequency is affected by migration. In immigration, the allele frequency goes up. Immigration, it goes down. Okay, we've said all of that. Genetic drift is the chance or random chance or random change in the allele frequency, and this is because of non-breeding. And then we bring it back to the kariaria, because if we don't take it back to that original question, you will not get your E. So these two, the top 3 points here, that was good enough for merit. But to get to the last one, you have to bring it back to the kariaria. Okay? So the kariaria, small population. Remember, there's only 7,000 of them left. Hence, the effect of migration and genetic effect would be more significant as gene flow occurs between North Island and South Island, with females migrating into new areas. Or, for instance, some of them will not be breeding, or any of these genetic drifts and migration, which will have a relatively large effect on a small gene pool due to the low number of birds left in the wild. So there's your first E mark. And then your second E mark is, now remember, we have to bring it back to the kariaria, but we also have to use the information provided. So we're talking about the information. So the phenotypes seen in the two groups are different due to different selection pressures. A large body size is beneficial in the South Island because the temperature is lower. It's between 5.9 and 10.5 degrees Celsius yearly. And the larger body size enables them to retain heat and increase their survival. They also live in an open habitat, which means they do not physically have to be small to maneuver around trees. Therefore, the wings can grow longer, which increases their ability to get food, and because they now have more food, they can now reproduce more, and they live longer. This beneficial phenotype obtains more nutrients and survives longer and reproduces more, passing on the beneficial phenotype and the alleles being retained in the population. Can you see how I'm asking the so what question there? It's like, okay, so he's larger, so what? Well, he can fly easier, so what? He's more successful, so what? Okay, well, he lives longer. Oh, so what? Oh, when you live longer, you have more babies. Ah, so what? More babies means more of your phenotype is going to be passed on to the next generation and generations to come. In contrast, the smaller body size is beneficial to the North Island kariaria of New Zealand falcon because they live in a native forest habitat and sometimes in the pine forests. So being smaller is an advantage when they're flying and hunting prey because they can maneuver around the trees. The temperature is significantly higher and the small body size enables them to stay cooler so that they don't overheat. Or you can also say that not being able to retain heat is not a selection pressure on him at all. So both this beneficial phenotype allows the bird to obtain more nutrients. So what? Well, it increases its survival. So what? Therefore they breed more. Okay, so what? And more alleles are retained and passed on to the next generation. There we go. So in all, I don't think that is too difficult. You can definitely get an E8 for that. Okay guys, as always, thank you for your attention and I hope you have a great weekend. Keep well. Bye.